freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your mega preview pod for this week's Sony Open. It's storylines, it's best bets, it's one and done. Joining me to break it all down, Patrick McDonald is here for now because he just told us he's going to the range here shortly. Hi, Patrick.
Gentlemen, what's going on? Yeah, let's make this one a little quicker than usual. But we got the mega preview, like you said, Rick, and first full field event. I'm pumped.
Patrick on the way out, Kyle Porter on the way in from the golf course today. Kyle, hello, sir.
Yeah, big day of golf. I think that's one of the biggest, I don't know about you guys, one of the biggest misconceptions about this job is like people, they always ask me, oh, you must play golf all the time. And the answer is no, I never do because I have 4 kids. It's not I write about golf for a living. I don't play it for a living. So do you guys get that question?
Yeah, but I'm sure I play a lot more golf than you guys do.
You for sure play more than me.
Yeah, I get it a lot. I haven't played since Thanksgiving though, and then I've gotten really into like tennis and pickleball lately. So,
yeah,
and those are a bit cheaper, easier on the wallet. So
I know this only happens like once a year, but I'm actually like it's pouring here in Vegas. I couldn't even go to the course if I wanted to, and now I feel like you guys have better weather situations than me, when I have a better weather situation than everyone most of the time.
Well, didn't you play Shadow Creek this weekend? you poor man.
Rick was begging you to ask about that.
The tiny violins are being broken out.
Man.
Yeah, no one is getting much sympathy. I'm not getting much sympathy here. But yes, I played Shadow Creek this weekend. It was absolutely perfect weather, and it was perfect out there.
It's awesome.
That video of you feeding the ducks was electric.
Dude. So there's these ducks. You might they showed up for the Tiger Phil match. You might remember them. They're just always out there. They stand on like the 6th green. They don't care. They're like there. And I guess our caddy feeds them peanuts, which you're probably not supposed to do. But as he was 100 yards away and he shook his peanut pack, and they made a beeline in the pond, swam over as fast as they could, and then we're just taking it out of our hands. It was wild.
Damn.
You know what we need to do before the end of the year? I don't know if this is logistically possible, but if we could get a match between us 3 and Craig, that would be awesome.
Wherever I need to fly, wherever we need to put this together.
What is Craig's probably like a 2, right?
Greg is he'll definitely sandbag us. I mean, yes, but he always acts like, oh, I don't play. I'm not.
He's probably listed as like a 5.5 or something dumb.
Yeah, sandbagger. That'd be a good match.
It would be good. I almost feel like you could play it without any strokes, like if you matched up the right people.
Right. That would be a lot of fun. All right, we'll have to get
so much fun.
We'll have to get that situated. Do you want to talk about Immelman Gate now, or should we wait until the actual one?
No, let's do it. Let's do it during the one and done, because we need to show the graph, and we'll push it.
I gotta get more riled up as the show progresses too.
Professional tees. We've got a second or third day of just absolute drama around the one and done, but we'll start with a little bit of news coming out of the golf world here. Winged Foot back on the schedule. 2028 U.S. Open. Patrick, this will be the 7th time that Winged Foot will host the U.S. Open. Obviously, the last time we had it there, Bryson brought it to its knees, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a second, but there were kind of some questions about whether we could go back to Winged Foot anytime soon.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts on them announcing this. The first is, didn't the greenskeeper say he would resign if they shot under par at Winged Foot?
So do you think it's a new guy?
I don't know.
It might be.
Yeah, I want to know if he's a man of his word. And then obviously the players were a bit upset, kind of since it played right into someone like Bryson's hands, as we saw. And the third, this is kind of just the U.S. Open in general. They've announced venues through 2051, which is just absurd to me that they do this. I don't really understand the logic, or, maybe they should make it a bit more ceremonial. It's a big deal for some of these courses getting it. I know they've started a bit of a rotation here, but 2051, like, so much could happen between now and then. That's 30 years. And That's kind of what just stuck out to me is they have it through 2051 and we're just now announcing 2028. But yeah, good for Winged Foot, good for New York. It'll have fans this time, so that'll be a different aspect involved. But yeah,
that's right. I forgot there was no fans at Winged Foot that year. Interesting. KP, Greg has said on this podcast, he wasn't sure if we could go back to Winged Foot.
I think he said he didn't care if we went back. Like, that's okay if we don't go back there, right? Wasn't that like more along the lines of what he was getting at?
It was a pretty strong take.
Yeah, I think. Well, there's a couple things here with Winged Foot. I think Winged Foot is actually a pretty good litmus test for what are we doing with equipment, right? With the ball and the equipment regulations, because I think that, you know, if you go there in 2028, that's a long time from now. And as driving distance, average driving distance continues to rise, it becomes those weeks when you have majors at a place like that become such like inflection points. I genuinely, I said this in the moment, I genuinely think the 2020 US Open was an inflection point in golf history, because I think that the USGA and the RNA and everybody that's kind of involved in these regulations is looking at that and saying, man, like, and maybe they're not, I don't have any insight to this, but if they change regulations or rules in the future, I have to think that 2020 at Winged Foot is like plays into that. Like, you don't want this classic iconic course that can't expand anymore to just get decimated like that. And I'm curious about, you know, are there regulations in place by 2028, or is it just gone further and become even more of a talking point? So I think that's interesting. I think the lineup, I mean, the rota of US Open courses is pretty amazing, right? If you look at the next, like through the 2020s, it's LACC, it's Pinehurst twice, Pebble, Marion, Winged Foot, Oakmont, Shinnecock. I might be missing one in there.
You got it.
And I mean, what's the worst course in there? Pebble, Pinehurst, Marion, probably Pebble, right? Which is crazy because Pebble is at least for a US Open. I think Pebble gets kind of a bad rap because you can play it. It's fairly public. And because it hosts a regular tour event, I think those others get a little bit more prestige because they only host majors. They're, for the most part, that I can think of. I guess Pinehurst is public, but everything else pretty much private. Pebble's still an amazing course. I mean, it's truly, there's some unbelievable holes on the front, specifically at the end of the front nine, beginning of the back nine. But for that to be the worst course in your roto over the next 8 years is pretty special.
There's a 3-year stretch. 2028 and then 2030 is Marion. And Patrick, that's like, if we can't expand and we're going to have equipment and distance conversations and what's going to happen at US Opens, and if these sites are viable for the future, there's going to be a lot of that chatter over those 3 years, because we've already talked about Winged Foot. Marion's, there's nowhere to go. The acreage is absolutely tiny. It's not something we're going to hear the end of.
Yeah, Marion last time out was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the shorter US Opens, correct?
It's short, and it's also just like the plot of land is like the smallest plot of land in US Open history or something outrageous like that.
Well, and what they have to do, the big complaint last time was just how tricked up they had to make the course because it was so short, and it just leads to these it's just not a good situation. And you know, a lot of that is like, okay, eventually that's going to happen to Winged Foot if it's not already happening, you know? And so over time, courses like that become outdated, not because they're not amazing, but because equipment is, in my opinion, completely out of control.
Yeah. You can only grow the rough so high and make the green so firm and fast before it just becomes putt-putt of some sort.
So to put this into perspective, the acreage that the East Course at Marion sits on is 126 acres. Augusta National, 365 acres. So you're talking about nearly triple the land space between those two venues.
And honestly, Augusta is not. it doesn't feel sprawling. I mean, it's big, but it doesn't feel Aaron Hillsy or even Shinnecock, right? It's a fairly, I would say it's a fairly like moderate footprint, and so that just gives you an idea of what Marion is working with there.
What's the game plan? Right? Like, what's the game plan at Winged Foot? Because Patrick, you said it really lends itself to a game like Bryson DeChambeau. Those fairways were very narrow. Everyone was missing them. The rough was very thick. And when everyone's playing out of the rough, the guy with the club head speed, Bryson DeChambeau, also Matthew Wolff, they are going to find the most success. So what's the solution?
They're going to have to widen the fairways, you would think, and kind of go back to the graduated rough that they've been doing. I don't think they did at Winged Foot that year because, the wide misses were just as penal as the really close ones. So that's something that's going to change. But at the halfway point, Patrick Reed was actually leading. I do remember that much because he shot 45 to open Saturday. So there was some sort of path there for kind of the scramblers, which always kind of pop up at the U.S. Opens, but they got to make it more fair off the tee. In particular, would be my guess, just because everyone was missing fairways, and when that happens, it's going to be, like you said, Bryson DeChambeau, Matthew Wolff, the really heavy hitters.
Right.
I've actually seen arguments. This might have been on the fried egg, but for just shorter rough, because you get these when you have long rough, it's almost more. I'm not going to explain this right, but it's almost more controllable versus short rough. You get these flyers, and you get a lot more variables, right? You get just a lot of things that are brought into play. So I don't know. I think that's one interesting option that I'm sure Brando would disagree with, but I think you do have to widen it a little bit. But I mean, listen, like, Bryson was the only one under par. I know he was 6 under, but I think Matt Wolff was second at even, right?
Louis was there.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that makes me think it's a little bit overblown. Like, okay, yeah, he won by 6 shots, but the rest of the field, the other 150 guys, couldn't break par, or I guess Matt Wolff was even par.
And I think another option is I remember JT led after the first round with 65. I think he was 5 under. You could probably, from like a green and pin and firmness standpoint, dial it up a little bit earlier in the week. Like, I think the USGA has done a really good job over the last few years of gradually making it harder as the week goes on, which is interesting. But I think you could dial it up a little bit more on day 1 too, and then all of a sudden you're not really in a position necessarily to shoot 6 under on Sunday. I don't know. Again, Bryson was the only one that did it, so clearly he did something right. I think the distance thing is just such a it's such an interesting part of playing that golf course. And I was looking back at some Rory quotes where he said, like, I didn't think he was going to be able to do this at a proper golf course. And he said, this course is as proper as they come. And he was still able to do it, which is, I think, a little bit of testament to Bryson, but also, again, a referendum on kind of where equipment is at, and not just at, but going. There's going to be 10 Brysons by 2028 and not just one of them.
Before we turn our attention to the Sony Open, we could play a little trivia. So this will be the 7th trip to Winged Foot. The prior 6 winners, I'll give you Bryson. That was 2020. Do we want to take a stab at the other 5 here? I can give you years if that'll help.
Well, we got G off.
Yep, that was 2006. Jeff Ogilvy, 1-shot victory, 5 over par. 1-shot victory over Jim Furyk, Phil Mickelson, Colin Montgomery.
Morikawa was like 4 years old.
Yeah.
We got Bobby Jones beat Al Espinoza in 1929.
That is correct. 6 over par in a playoff. Do you know what the winner's share was that year, 1929?
It was like $400, but he beat him by 23 strokes, so he should have gotten more than $400.
1,000.
Okay. I went down a rabbit hole for that that U.S. Open. He won the playoff by 23 strokes. They played 36 holes, but still, Espinosa shot 80-84 in the playoff.
Yeah, it's actually so Wikipedia has the scorecard. It's actually it's pretty ugly.
It's insane. And Bobby Jones doubled the first hole, and he was down 2.
Yep.
And then he won by 25 over the next 35 holes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. Okay. Wow. I wasn't expecting that rabbit hole. So we've got
lost.
Bryson. We've got Bryson 2020, Ogilvy 2006, Bobby Jones 1929. The other ones are I'll be impressed if you get any of them.
Well, one was the massacre at Wingfoot, which was in like 1976 or something.
I'm gonna throw a name that's wrong. Hubert Green.
You are correct that is wrong.
Yeah. Felt wrong.
1974, Kyle.
1974. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I should remember because I read a bunch about it, but I don't remember who won.
Hale Irwin. 7 over.
Okay.
2-stroke victory over Forrest Fessler.
Sure.
That's who I was thinking of for my next guess.
We've got 2 more. 84 and 59.
84.
84.
84. I'll tell you, 84 was a playoff. The runner-up was Greg Norman. Does that help at all?
That's when they did 18 holes too.
Nick Price, he would have been too young, probably.
No. Fuzzy Zeller.
Okay, wouldn't have got that.
And then 59.
Was 59? This might be dumb, but did Davis Love win there? Davis Love the second.
Davis Love the second. No, that was Billy Casper's year.
Okay,
there you go. Billy boy.
I just remember when Davis Love the third won a PGA there.
Correct.
And I remember there was something about, maybe it was just that his father had passed away, but there was some like intimate connection there. I didn't know if his dad had won there or whatever. But yeah, he won the PGA there in like 96 or 97.
97. Correct.
Okay.
Well done, gents. That's more than I thought we were going to get. Let's look at this week. Sony Open, first full field event of the year, and it wouldn't be the start of the year, Patrick, without Tom Kim being the favorite. Here we go. This is the ascension. This time last year, he was on the Asian Tour. Now he's a top 15 player in a full field event on the PGA Tour, and he's the favorite to win.
Pretty impressive. And look, I've been kind of down on Tom Kim in general, and he's proven me wrong at every step of the way. And even at a course last week at Kapalua, you would think, okay, it's too big for him. It doesn't really play into his strengths, and leads the field, strokes gained tee to green, T5 finish there next to Rahm on Sunday. And now he's coming to a course where you heard him after his round. He's like, yeah, people are telling me that Wailea is a course that's tailor-made for my game. Couldn't be more excited. And he's the rightful favorite. It's pretty incredible to say about a 20-year-old that a lot of people didn't know about this time last year. And so I'm just along for the ride at this point. I've been proven wrong enough. I don't want to attack Tom Kim any which way in the betting markets, and it's gonna be fun to watch. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins. He does. Tom Kim is my father at this point. The 20-year-old kid is my father. So I'm excited to see how he handles the situation. I doubt he looks at betting markets or anything like that, but it's kind of just rightful given how he's played so far.
That would be amazing if he did. Patrick, I think we're a little bit thinking about Tom Kim incorrect. There's two different. There's almost two different leagues in professional golf, right? There's the majors and the sort of like big ballpark, big boy events. And then there's places like the Sony Open where Tom Kim should thrive, honestly. Like, it negates what he does poorly and it accentuates what he does really well. And right now he's one of the best iron players in the world. I think last 3 months, it's him and Hoagie are the two best ball strikers in this field. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, Rick, but it's something like that. And I think we almost need to, and at this point, honestly, because he's so young, I'm a little bit hesitant to discount Tom Kim even at the majors or at a place like Torrey. I mean, look what he did at Kapalua. That's super impressive for somebody who's just really, really short. I mean, just objectively, he's just short. Like, he's not long at all. And that wasn't a Skip Bayless. Ricky Fowler's too like physically short to win a major championship. I mean, he's short off the tee.
His hands are too small.
Or that commercial, that phone commercial. He's short.
So I almost feel like we need this. I'm trying to think of somebody else who's like this, Rick, who has can really thrive at YLI or Colonial or, different RBC Heritage, almost like a Webb Simpson-y kind of. And I think
Kisner.
Yeah. And I think that Tom Kim is actually a deserving. If this was Torrey and he was a favorite, I'd be like, okay, this is out of control. But because it's YLI, you're like, okay, it's a little bit of the hype, but it's also the statistics back it up, So I think, I don't know. I'm both with you. I am with you in that Tom Kim continues to prove all of us wrong, but also I sort of agree with you that when we get to Oak Hill or Augusta, I'm a little bit hesitant to kind of make him one of the top 5 favorites.
Here's the other thing, though. And I get it. He's not long off the tee, and there are plenty of examples of short guys off the tee, but it feels like he's just so much better at everything else than the other short guys, right? Like we were rattling off names the other day, and if you go and look at, obviously it's a small sample size, but this season, his driving is it's Chris Stroud, it's Kevin Kisner, it's Scott Piercy, it's Doc Redman. It's, that's how he is off the tee, but he is exponentially better than all of those guys in every other facet. So the math problem, it just shifts, Patrick.
Yeah. And that's what my tiny brain is having trouble kind of gathering here is, like we said with Bryson, it's these young guys coming onto the tour. They can all pound the ball, 300 carry off the tee. And so when you see a young guy like Tom Kim not be able to do that, you think, okay, he's going to probably struggle at some of these bigger golf courses. But like you said, it's just he shifts the bigger piece of the pie to the approach play one week. The next week, it's the putting. And so he gets it done just a different way that we're not used to seeing from this modern golfer, right? And so that's kind of what I've struggled a little bit to wrap my head around. So
I just looked up 2 names to your point, Rick. I just looked up 2 names that are kind of in his sphere in terms of length. One is Kevin Na, and while they are similar in terms of iron play and short game, Tom Kim's a lot more accurate off the tee, right? So he does that really well. And then another one's Russell Knox, and Russell Knox has a really great approach game. But Tom Kim's short game is a lot better than Russell Knox. So I think that sort of proves your point that he's not a Cantlay in that he doesn't have any holes. He has a really big hole, and it might be a really important hole as we talk about his future. But I think it's a really great point that he does everything else so well that it a little bit makes up for it in ways that, it doesn't for a Russell Knox or a Kevin Na. So I think he's objectively and subjectively better than those guys. And I think it makes sense why, but it's easy also to kind of lump him into that category. But I will say, it makes your weeks in which you win, you got to be kind of perfect, right? Driving distance covers up a multitude of sins, it really bails you out of a lot of different things. And so it makes it difficult for you to win or contend when you're not very long, except at places like YLI. I don't know that that's necessarily the case this week, but I don't know. Those are kind of some of my thoughts on kind of where Tom Kim is at right now.
The rest of the top 5 on the betting board, as mentioned, Tom Kim 11-1, Sung Jae 12-1, Jordan Spieth back in action, along with Brian Harman at 16-1, and then Hideki Matsuyama at 18-1. So Patrick, when you look at this, we've got, how many wins between Jordan Spieth, Hideki Matsuyama. They're playing second fiddle on the odds board to Tom Kim this week, but there's some pretty solid guys in action. That's before you even get to the Tom Hoagies of the world and all the young guys.
Exactly. Hideki Matsuyama to me is still, I think I've said it before, just the most difficult man to figure out on the PGA Tour.
Impossible.
You have no idea what's going on with him. And then he's right next to maybe the second most difficult man to figure out on the PGA Tour in Jordan Spieth. So there's a lot of volatility between the two of them. I know they're up there in the odds board, and Spieth, I guess he's just knocking off one of these normal events quickly, staying an extra week in Hawaii, but played here 4 times prior, as you'd expect, a couple missed cuts, a couple good finishes. Hideki, obviously the defending champion. And Sungjae Im's really interesting to me this week. Just, I think the number is pretty decent from a betting perspective. And then also, we need to see, I know he's only 24, but I'd like to see Sungjae win here soon. He hasn't won in over a calendar year. Last one was in Vegas, down in your neck of the woods there, Rick. And he's just played some really solid golf and hasn't been rewarded for it. You think about, he had 3 runner up there late in the summer. So I'm interested to see what Sungjae Im is going to do this week. He's been playing well over a prolonged period of time. So it's definitely a very interesting betting board outside of Tom Kim.
There are a couple of guys that I just kind of earmarked for conversation, KP, but we can go in any direction. There's this real storyline with only 70 guys locking up their cards at the end of the year. No longer is finishing 120th going to do the trick. And some of these guys, like a Taylor Montgomery, who got off to a hot start in the fall, Alex Smalley, who had 3 straight top 15 finishes, even Matt McNeely put together a decent stretch, like them earning those points in the fall, now ready to try to continue that, because it's, believe it or not, it'll be August before you know it, and somebody's going to be sitting 72nd thinking, "Oh man, this really stinks that this is the first year and I'm getting banged with this."
Yeah, I think you're going to see this increase next year, right? When guys that are on the fringe of even being able to be in the elevated events are kind of fighting it out at places like Sony. And I actually think that's pretty interesting, because it's consequential golf. It's meaningful. You gotta kind of play your way into not just the major championships, but even maybe a place like the Phoenix Open. And so I think that's when there's I think the PGA Tour has done and we've criticized them for this before, they've done a bad job of kind of flattening everything. Everything's just sort of the same, and FedEx Cup points are kind of all the same. And it's not a very consequential way to run your league. It might be the best short-term business model. I don't know that it's the best for your long-term product. And to in a roundabout way of answering your question, there's certainly more urgency earlier in the year than I think there has ever. Somebody like a Russell Henley. I don't know where Russell Henley is in the FedEx Cup, but he goes to Sony with a lot more urgency than maybe in years past, where it's like, oh, well, if I finish 80th or 87th or whatever, I'm in that doesn't exist anymore. And that's great. I think that's a good thing. I don't know that it'll necessarily be a huge shift for fans overall or for kind of the consumer of the PGA Tour, but it's certainly kind of an undercurrent there as we jump into these non-elevated events.
We can do our best bets. Anything else Sony Open related that we would like to chat on?
Hey, producer Troy, pull up this latest comment from Brett, 434. He says, do you think the 70, so moving to FedEx Cup playoffs being 70 instead of 125 will make the lower tier guys play more on average? Yes, I do. Because, and this is, Joseph Lamagna has been big on this, if you guys follow him on Twitter, and this is kind of dumb, but your best path to winning the FedEx Cup playoffs, even if you're a top player, is to play the worst events, right? You're incentivized to play the worst events because you play 3M. It's only 50 less FedEx Cup points than Riviera. And it's so much easier to finish in the top 5, top 10, top 15, whatever. So yes, I do think that will lead to lower tier guys playing more, which I don't really know what that means. I don't know if that means guys that have kind of these weird lifetime exemptions, like a JJ Henry, do they get boxed out? Do Corn Ferry guys get boxed out? If you've ever seen a field, what am I looking for here, Rick? Like an exemptions into a field.
Mm-hmm.
The priority list.
Oh, the priority list. Okay.
It's unbelievably complex. It's really complicated. It's a mess.
Most guys don't even know. Like, you'll ask. I've asked guys like, "Oh, are you getting into whatever?" And he's like, "I don't know. It's too like it's. My agent will tell me or whatever."
Right. So So all that to say, I don't know who's getting bounced if again Russell Henley plays 5 more events than he did the year before. But I do think guys are incentivized to play more of the lower tier events than they otherwise would be in a kind of a normal year.
I had this kind of on the outline, and then there was this comment. And do you want to talk about this, Kyle?
Sure.
All right. So, and I'm sure we've all been victim of this at some point, right? So Kyle, you tweeted out, I think it was yesterday, that you had posted a video of Jordan Spieth going over, talking to those guys behind the green at the Tournament of Champions, which is something we all saw. He could hear him talking in his putting stroke. You posted that video to Twitter. You got a email from the PGA Tour asking you to take it down.
Yeah, so this happens a bunch, and I wasn't surprised to get an email. I was actually surprised to get an email rather than a DMCA, which is basically where they just remove your content and say, don't do this again, or you get suspended from your social media account or whatever. So the way that I framed the tweet actually, I think didn't convey properly that the PGA Tour didn't ask me to take the video down because of what Jordan Spieth said, or because there was like gambling adjacent content in it or anything like that. It was more so because they had also posted the video, and their media rights will not allow them to, their media rights are basically like, they have to tell people like me to take a video that I filmed on my phone off of Twitter, off of Instagram, off of YouTube, whatever. I completely understand that. I am very cognizant of the way those media rights contracts work. The argument that I made on Twitter and that I made to them via email was, listen, I understand this, but other leagues have figured out how to let their most influential creators or people that talk about their league, their product, essentially, post stuff everywhere. And I think it's, again, a long-term bad play if you're trying to curtail how much your most influential people that are talking about your product are talking about your product. You should figure out a way to put in your contracts, in your media rights, whatever it is. And the NBA's figured this out, or they've just looked the other way or whatever. And they've grown. It's the NBA is better because of it, right? Like you are more aware of NBA stuff because the NBA tells Worldwide Wob, or whatever his name is, Rob Perez, that he can post whatever he wants. And I just, at a time where the tour is not in the greatest position that they've ever been in, I just don't know that that's the fight that they necessarily need to fight. Now, legally, contractually, I understand, and I'm curious about y'all's thoughts, but I told them, I was like, I just really disagree with kind of your long-term position on something like this.
As someone who's been a victim of the DMCA in the past, Patrick, like this to me is beyond frustrating.
It's bonkers. It's like MLB.
For so many people who get paid 0 cents from their league that they love and enjoy and want to talk about and want to create conversation about, to get slapped with something like this is like, it's actually insulting. No matter if you have 100,000 followers, 100 followers, if you want to enjoy tweeting a video that you took off your phone of you enjoying watching something on TV, like, go for it. I agree that it is. I understand why it's happening. I believe it to be incredibly short-sighted.
I agree. I don't really have much more to add besides that. I agree with both of you guys, and I don't understand the point of taking down a viral video that is promoting your product, essentially. Even if it's a bad video, like, people still are talking about the PGA Tour. Like, I think like the pictures of like Patrick Reed, I don't know if any of those got taken down, but that was electric at Torrey Pines. Like, why would you not? I understand you got to protect the players and everything and the contracts, yada, yada, yada. Just move on, figure a way around it. And I think everyone will be happier, better off for it.
Well, and I think, one of the arguments I saw or heard was like, well, Kyle shouldn't be making money off of the PGA Tour's product. And first of all, like, that's literally what my job is. Second of all, I don't directly make money off of a video that it's not like there's some secret Twitter thing where I get paid money to post, like, if a video gets a bunch of views or something like that. And thirdly, like, the more people like us grow as content distributors, the better it is for the PGA Tour, right? Because we're talking about their product. Like, to me, it's a short term, like, hey, well, this is what the contract says. I understand. I get it. And I will take it down. I will comply because I understand. But it's such a short term mindset that doesn't take into account the long-term sustainability of your product, which is going to be, I mean, we don't need to go too deep into this. We've already moved into this like creator economy where creators run the market in a lot of ways. Do you think the PGA Tour account gets more engagement than like the No Laying Up account? No.
Why do you think the entire promotional marketing effort for Callaway's new paradigm was good, Howie Ledbetter, Roger Steele, Rick, like literally every content creator, and like maybe the golfers are using it too. I don't know, but like these guys are telling you it's good.
Yeah, it wasn't John Rahm telling you that the last hour was commercial free.
Right.
It was Roger Steele.
Right. For a reason.
Yeah.
And I think that some leagues have embraced that. And some have not. And the Tour is one that, and again, I emailed them this and just in a nice way. I wasn't like a jerk about it, but I just said, I think this is I didn't say foolish, but I think this is a foolish long-term play because you want people like me and Rick and Patrick. I didn't use your all's names, but you want us posting videos talking about your product. One person commented and said, hey, I forgot Spieth was playing. And when you posted that video, I watched the rest of the weekend. Now, That's not everybody, but that's the sort of effect that happens there. Or maybe somebody checks the Spieth score on the PGA Tour app or whatever. Even if that stuff doesn't happen, it just makes people more aware of your product. And that is so much more valuable than like you retaining all these like very specific parameter based rights or media rights that are in the contract.
Yeah, thank you for not using my name specifically. I'm already in too much trouble with the PGA Tour. I've got to be on my best behavior for a while. All right, here's what we're going to do. We got to do our best bets. We have to do our one and done selections. We'll start with our best bets, but first we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Here we go. This is where we go over to Caesars and we put down 50 nuggets on a matchup, 30 on any finishing position that we want, and 2 separate $10 wagers on 2 outrights. Kyle, I have to go let the dog in. He's barking outside the door. So tell me what your matchup is for this week's Sony Open and vamp for at least 20 seconds.
What a professional setup this is. Do we have it here? Producer Troy. Maybe producer Troy had to let his dog in too. Or out. I've got I went back and forth on this, Patrick. I've got Tom Hoagie over Russell Henley. At first, I actually had the opposite of Rick. I had Corey Connors over Taylor Montgomery. I needed to get Hoagie in somewhere just because of how well he's hitting the golf ball. And I don't love having him over Henley at YY, but he's been the best iron player in the world over the last 3 months, at least of guys that are in this field. And so I had to get him in somewhere into this betting board.
Hopefully he'll show some more signs of life than his Horned Frogs did last night.
Oh my gosh.
That was it. Every time I did the same thing 9 times. Every time I looked at the TV, I went, they scored again. Every time.
It was incredible.
Patrick, Keegan Bradley's on a diet. The Keegan Bradley diet, -110 over Mav McNeely. Looks good, feels good. You think he's going to play good?
I do. And look, last week I went -$150 because I'm an entertainer at heart. I got to let you guys get off to a big lead. Got to be like John Rahm a little bit, just wait in the shallows and then pounce when the moment's right. I'm going to get right this week, though. Keegan Bradley, -110 over McNeely, like you said. It's really a ball striker versus a putter. We've seen bad putters putt very well here. Kind of flat, glassy surfaces, and easier putting greens typically favor the better ball striker. And McNeely just, I'm not in love with his game. I can't trust him tee to green. I know he's really good on the greens, but Keegan has a pair of T12s here the last few years, so I like that bet at -110. And he played last week, so the rust is off.
Yeah, -110 over Mav McNeely. I'm all aboard the Taylor Montgomery train. +105 over Corey Connors. Literally the only argument in Corey Connors' favor is that he has putted well here in the past. He's been dismal. He's been bad since the Tour Championship. He was horrible at the President's Cup. Taylor Montgomery's been stout, played 7 times in the fall, had 6 top 15s. He's probably going to be the rookie of the year. I don't buy the Corey Connors stuff. Taylor Montgomery, giddy up.
Connor's been good at this course.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, which I think is probably less important than how bad he's been recently.
I hope so. That is my hope. Any finishing position in the whole wide world that you want, Kyle? Where would you like to go?
Yeah, I got Keith Mitchell top 20. Keith Mitchell, somebody that if you look at his last 5 years at Sony, he's not necessarily like the guy that you would think of in terms of course fit for YLI, because his superpower is how far he can hit the golf ball, but he's really improved at YLI. He had a T7 last year, and he kind of had improved over the last 5 years at the Sony. I think Keith Mitchell's really a candidate to have a year in which I don't know that he's going to make the Ryder Cup team, but maybe threatens it. Maybe he's kind of on the fringe of that. Maybe gets into I don't know what he's ranked right now. Like, that's a fun game to play, actually. Like, what do you think he's ranked, Patrick?
77.
I'll say like 92. I have no idea, but he's somebody that I think could get into the top 30 in the world, top 25 in the world at some point.
57.
Okay.
93 in the FedEx Cup, though. So
everybody that's like 60 to 110 is just like interchangeable to me. Like, you might as well be, like, there's no difference.
Yeah, that was how we birthed Scott Stallings, but then he became good and like ruined the whole bit, which was super annoying.
Don't forget when that happened.
I'm going Hayden Buckley top 20. Drive it well. He drives it very well. I'm a believer in the kid. This is the tournament where I just play my guys. It's been 3 months. I haven't been able to play my guys. I'm playing my guy. I guess it's been 6 weeks, not 3 months. I'm playing my guys, top 20 plus 280. Patrick, you found one that's even longer than Kyle and I.
I like this one a lot. He's not really my guy per se, but Russ Knox, top 20 plus 450. Kyle kind of pointed him out when we were talking about Tom Kim, right? Really accurate off the tee, good drive, or a good iron player as well, but he's pretty dismal on the greens. But T7 last year, has another top 10 recently as well. I kind of liken him to like a poor man's Russell Henley. And we all know what Russ can do around here. And he always pokes his head around these shorter golf courses. So I really like that price for a top 20.
Couple of outrights. We get 2 cracks at this, and look at us. The shortest one between 6 outrights is 35. No, I'm sorry.
No, I've got TK.
I got too excited.
Yeah, I blew that. I'll go. I've got Mitchell, who I already talked about. I mean, I know Mark said last week that there's not a better golf course for Tom Kim than TPC Sawgrass. I would disagree. I think YLI is just incredible golf course for Tom Kim. And I was a little down on him on Sunday, which is not indicative of kind of my overall position on Tom Kim. And I love him this week. We'll get to more of that later on.
Breaking news. John Huh has just withdrawn from the Sony Open.
Gosh, what will we do?
And he has been replaced with Jonathan
Bird.
It made it really easy to guess after I gave you his first name, huh?
Well, yeah.
Tom Kim, Keith Mitchell for Kyle. I'm going with Svenny. Just won the RSM Classic, and this is like a great spot for him. And Cam Davis, who, again, one of my guys, drives it so well, completely underrated the rest of his game. It's time. 35-1 for Cam Davis. Patrick, you exclusively went with guys who go by initials.
Yeah, and they played last week. I know the trend's out there. 17 out of 24 winners here. Played the week prior. 8 out of the last 9. JJ Spawn, do not look at his course history. It is really, really bad.
Really?
But do you know what he hasn't done ever before? He's never played the week before. And he T5 there at the Tournament of Champions, 5th in strokes gained tee to green, really accurate off the tee, 6th in par 4 scoring over the last 6 months. I love JJ Spawn this week. And JT Poston is a guy who played last week as well. He gained off the tee, led the field in driving accuracy also, which I don't know how much to put in that since the fairways are a zillion miles wide. But he bled strokes on and around the greens. That typically doesn't happen for someone like JT Poston. So I think he bounces back.
Cam Davis, Adam Svensson, JJ Spawn, JT Poston, Keith Mitchell, Tom Kim, the 6 outrights for the Sony Open this week. And now we've got to determine our absolute best bet, our money ball, the thing that can do no wrong. Patrick, we'll just bounce this right back to you. Where are you going to spend your extra 50 smackers?
I'm going back to the Keegan Bradley minus 110 over Matt McNeely. I think it's priced incorrectly, and I think Bradley just has a much higher floor than McNeely. McNeely's all putter. Bradley, great ball striker, putters coming around, and so I love that bet this week.
Skinny Keegs. He really did lose 30 pounds. I didn't realize that.
Yes, his diet he described as if it walks, swims, or flies, I can eat it. If it doesn't, I can't.
He said he also ate some fruit. So I don't know if pineapple is walking, but he threw some. I've got Tom Kim top 10. I think that maybe that's too obvious of a pick, but he's, for all the hype about his sort of disposition and his demeanor and all that, which I'm in on, he's a really great iron player, or he's been a really great iron player. And this is a place where you want to be you want to be a great iron player everywhere, but this is a place that it really, really matters. And so I'm in on him finishing in the top 10.
I've opted for a 3-ball, which I haven't done recently, but I saw it was Cam Davis plus 155, who obviously I love. I picked him as an outright wager as well, over Andrew Putnam and Christian Bezuidenhout. And I said, nah, we got this from the Aussie, and plus 155 for my money ball felt like a good way to deploy my funds. So it's Cam Davis over Putnam and Bez, Keegan Bradley over Matt McNeely, and Tom Kim finished inside the top 10, the best wagers for this week's Sony Open. Leaves us with one thing to do, gents, and there is just a lot of controversy happening. So I think we'll reset. We'll take a quick break, and we'll talk about it on the other side. And we're back. Mark Immelman is in a pickle, and he has us in a pickle. So for those who were unaware, we entered our one and done selections for last week on the show, the official show of record. Xander Schauffele was Mark's pick. Yet when we revealed it on Sunday night, somehow John Rahm was Mark's selection. That was confusing. We start digging through the documents. We start calling around. We come to find out that after the deadline, Mark had reached out directly to producer Troy to change his pick from Xander to John Rahm amongst all the back injury concern.
When did he do that, Rick?
I believe it would have been Tuesday. Did we find out it was Tuesday? No, it was Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wednesday. Patrick, what's your take?
This it's a sad day in America. I think you never want something.
Never meet your heroes, Patrick.
You never want something like this to happen. We had Kyle M on the show. He said specifically he got into that contest because of Mark.
That's right.
And this is how Mark repays him. And look, I don't know Mark all too well. I've only done a couple shows with him. But it's tough. I've certainly lost sleep over it. I can't imagine how he's feeling in the moment. And we used to be a country, but this is where you might have to draw the line.
The thing that really, I think I'm still pro him keeping his 2.7, but after we realized that Xander actually got $0, so it was either 0 or 2.7. That's tough. Like it just is. I don't know.
I think that we were at fault for not having a more hard and steadfast rule in place.
I think that's right.
So I don't think he did anything illegal. I just think it was immoral.
I couldn't put it better myself, Rick.
It goes against the spirit of the game. He should probably disqualify. It's like Tiger at the 13 Masters, just to disqualify himself.
Who was it at Harbortown that one year in the playoff? Was it Brian Gay? Out of the reeds? He said touched the reed.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yep, it's like that. It's like that commercial where the kids are playing basketball and he's like, "Coach, I touched the ball. It was off me." It's integrity. And so this is, like I said, just a sad day in America.
Well, I think the hard part, I know we're all joking, but the hard part is, Greg wanted to do the same thing, right? He wanted to, and this is where it gets into like we needed to have a better rule.
So did Sia, yeah.
Greg knew that Xander was out, and he thought that, and I mean, this has always been the rule, is that like whoever you picked, unless they withdrew, you couldn't change it, right?
I don't know if it was a rule, but that is all how it's an unspoken rule, right? It is how we acted. Yes, that is how we've proceeded with this contest.
I think the only fair way to settle this is, and Kyle, I know you picked John Rahm, so I don't really want you in this part of the conversation, but I think the rest of us, the entire group, we all get 2.7 million.
Wow. Okay. No,
that seems aggressive, even for me, who has 200,000.
I'm out on that. Maybe we should make him sit a week out or something. That seems fair.
See, there's also another factor here that Mark cares about this way more than anybody else cares about this, and that he takes it very, very seriously. And I kind of like having, for the next 34 weeks, an asterisk next to his, like that the fact that if he goes on to win this and it's any sense of dirty, that's gonna eat him alive. I feel like that's the punishment. We just never let him forget it.
Mental warfare.
Corey in the chat is suggesting that, or maybe somebody else. Oh, Alex in the chat is suggesting that we should start this week instead of last week.
That's a great idea.
It's not bad. I mean, it also penalizes.
Not for Kyle.
Yeah,
that's tough for me. I was like at the end of the tournament, I was so excited because I was like, oh, I was the only one that had Rahm, and then we get on there and I was like, whoa, wait a second, what's going on here?
Yeah, Kyle, I knew you were pumped because you even wrote in the live blog. You're like, oh, this could turn out great for me. I have Ramen one and done.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know what else to put in the live blog, but
I actually think the most telling thing about this is he reached out to Troy directly instead of going to the group chat. We have debated these instances in the group chat many a time. To go directly to producer Troy makes me think he was trying to get away with something.
He said he wasn't part of the group chat, which
He's
is
full of it. He is
not,
absolutely involved.
That's
in
not
it.
true, for sure. I don't know. What should we do? What should we do, Patrick?
Honestly, I think it's fine. I kind of feel bad for Greg and Sia, though. I think.
Okay, maybe that's so. We can't penalize Kyle here. What if we give Greg and Sia the 200,000 for last place instead of the 0 for Xander? That'll get them basically to where everyone else is. Who knows who they would have switched to?
Yeah,
I like that. I think that's
fine.
Good, and then we still have a card to play against Mark if he wins.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And then we can't punish Kyle. And then Kyle's not getting punished by starting over.
I would love to see Kyle M and Mark on an episode together soon, though.
Well, yeah.
Hopefully Kyle M brings that hot
Phoenix, baby.
Looking up to the guy he wants to take down, and Mark's pulling out all the shady stunts he can to beat the guy who donated a lot of money to a children's hospital.
Wow,
sad day.
You hate. I hate it when that happens.
You hate it when that happens. It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, it really is. No, I'm pro adding. I don't think Sia and Greg, because they were operating by the spirit of the rules. I don't think they should get punished for that.
All right, we'll crank them back up to 200,000.
Okay,
and we'll go from there, and we'll have an asterisk on Mark's pick for the rest of the year. I have the one and done results or the entries for this week. Let's start with. Well, we'll start with Greg and Sia. Greg is a lone wolf. He has opted for Taylor Montgomery, which I love. Good for him. Sia, also a lone wolf, has opted for Corey Connors. Do we have this slide somewhere? I don't want to just share that screen. Is that it, Troy? I can keep going. Okay. So Sia went with, thank you. Yes. Okay. Sia with Corey Connors, Greg with Taylor Montgomery. Okay, there's the updated $200,000. The fans went with Tommy Kim, which KP, so did you and I.
Yep. I mean, listen, like, I think you are, it's going to be hard for me to pick him at an elevated event or at a major. And so you're getting a top 15 type player at a place where he should not dominate, but should play well. So this to me was kind of the place to play him, maybe a Colonial or something like that, but I don't know what his schedule is going to be. So I kind of went with him here. Yeah,
probably our last chance to get him as the favorite, maybe, depending on how the rest of his year goes on a golf course that I think is a really good fit for him at a time he's playing really, really well. So Tom Kim for myself, Kyle, and the fans. Patrick, you've opted for, oh, wow, you're really going for this. JJ Spawn. You know there are other players in the field, right?
Wow.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to go with Tom Kim myself, but I figured it'd be a big Tom week. And I guessed right between the Kim and Hoagie. And look, you're getting Tom Kim at his absolute peak right now, in my opinion. Tournament favorite for the first time ever. Popularity at an all-time high.
Isn't that what you want?
Yeah, but look, once he misses the cut, potentially, we got 3 guys with no money. And so you got to play a little game theory here, in my opinion. Oh. And I think a lot. Well, I'm also thinking like Rick for your contest too. This is how I'm thinking also.
Yeah, that's a good one
which is probably wrong that I'm doing the same for both of these, but I am. So there's no going back.
The same pick for a league of 1,100 or 8.
Exactly.
Probably not the.
I mean, we got 3 of 8 with Tom Kim, and so I'm cool not riding the one and done with him this week. I probably should have gone with like Sung Jae, honestly, but I'm with JJ Spawn.
If Tom Kim misses this cut, I will have someone different by Sunday night. Don't you worry about it.
Okay? Oh yeah, for sure. You know, I almost picked Sung Jae and I almost picked Spieth. I legit thought about Spieth. I'm gonna play him at probably Augusta or Hoylake, which is why I didn't. But I mean, you want to pick sort of these. It depends, but I think if 2 or 3 or fewer guys are picking them, you kind of want to pick the unique favorites. Like Tom Kim, like Rick said, is not going to be a favorite again. So, I mean, if everybody's picking him, that's bad. But I think if only 2 or 3 guys are picking him, I think that's okay, right?
Especially at this point in the season, very, very early.
Yeah.
Kyle M., our moral compass, has opted for Tom Hoge. He's right in the middle of the pack. He's at 229,000, right below Patrick. So he went with Hoge. Hoge's been flying high, riding hot, probably a little bit disappointed about the results of the national title game, but he can certainly get himself around Wiley, I would imagine, Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Kyle said, he's been one of the best iron players over the last 6 months. So should be a good fit.
Crooked Mark took Russell Henley.
He'll probably win.
He probably will win. And he even told us about this on Sunday.
Yeah. And I told him, Patrick, I was like, you don't need to tell us. Just submit your pick. Like, that's all you need to do. Like, you don't have to tell us 5 days in advance. Just get it in by Tuesday at 5.
He's going through all the channels now, tweeting it out by the hour.
You don't want a paper trail until you really want a paper trail.
Yeah.
He somehow found the location of the group chat. Congratulations, Mark. So here we go. In order from top to bottom. Mark, Russell Henley, tied with Kyle, who went with Tom Kim. I also went with Tom Kim. Patrick went with JJ Spawn. Kyle M. went with Tom Hoge. The fans opted for Tom Kim. Greg and Sia both tied at $200,000. Greg went with Taylor Montgomery. Sia went with Corey Connors. Those are the one and done selections. And they will not change unless one of these golfers WDs before the tournament starts, in which we will allow them to choose someone else.
Yeah. Just like it's always been.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it's always been. Didn't even think I'd have to say something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you would think.
Anything else, Jens?
Somebody in. Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay. I saw Fire Sports ask a question about like one and done strategy. For the bigger
it was too reasonable and too much of a good question for the show, but here it was. I have one specific question. How much does differentiating from chalk matter this early into the one and done season? Do you want to tackle that, Patrick?
Well, I think if you're in a big one like Rick's, or I know Pat Mayo has one as well, that's pretty large. I think around 4,000. I think a pretty decent strategy is kind of just avoiding the Tom Kim this week, who's he could be like 15% in some of those contests, and then going with someone like a Sung JM or maybe even Hideki, who's flying really under the radar, like KP said, a Spieth. I think just moving forward, that'd be a decent strategy for the season.
Also very, very early. Probably don't need to get too crazy. And then as we start to get a little bit further, play your position. You're front running, play the favorites. You're chasing, get a little creative. Go ahead, KP.
Yeah, I had to get really creative at the end. I think I was picking like Webb Simpson for the Tour Championship. He wasn't even in the Tour Championship. It was tough. Now, somebody had a question earlier about would you take I can't remember where it was, but would you take JT's irons or Tom Kim's irons for the next 5 years? Was it 4? There you go. This is not close for me.
Justin Thomas.
JT.
Yeah, he's generationally great iron player. And
the off speed.
If you look at, so I took Data Golf back to January 1, 2015, which I don't think that was that was about the start of JT's professional career. In that time span, he's 4th in the world in approach play. So the guys above him, Colin Morikawa, Paul Casey, which is kind of surprising, I guess. Zalatoris is right at where JT is at. So 2 of those guys, Morikawa and Zalatoris, have played a lot less, like half of the measured rounds that, or maybe even less than that, that JT has played. Paul Casey is up there, but Tom Kim is like 20th on that list in terms of the last like 8 years. So I think anecdotally it's JT, but also empirically it's also JT.
Yeah. And as much as I love Tom Kim, he has like 9 measured events. So we'll maybe wait like 9 more before we crown him and then see how that goes.
Great iron player, though. I mean, like,
Awesome.
tremendous.
Awesome. Round by round recaps Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Also, I don't want to spoil it because I hate to spoil these things in advance because sometimes stuff happens. But we could potentially, if things work out, have a special guest later in the week. That's all I'm really going to say.
When are we taping that? Do we decide? I know we're still on the air.
Okay. So we are still on the air. Let's talk scheduling. We will tape it. We'll tape it 12 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Are you available?
Yeah.
All right. It will then run at the end of the Thursday night recap. So we'll do our quick Thursday recap, and then the second half of the show will be this recorded conversation with someone.
Yeah, I think they already guessed it in the chat, actually.
The only guess is Kevin Na, which I can assure you that is not who it is.
I've got some questions for Kevin Na.
Yeah, if Kevin Na wants to come
that'd be
on,
an interesting one.
I'm not saying no, but that is not who we have scheduled for Thursday. All right. That'll do it. Producer Troy, all the hard work behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Patrick McDonald at Amateur Status. Kyle Porter at Kyle Porter CBS. And you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.